worship the Dark Lord of Techno. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to make techno music like Charlotte de Witte, Amelie Lens and Adam Beyer. So over the past few weeks, I've been putting up different tutorials on how to make specific genres of dance music, and you can check them out here. They've been some of the most popular videos I've put up, so I decided to make another one, and today is all about techno. I'm using Ableton Live 10, but you can do this in any DAW really, and you can do it using just the stock plugins that come included in your software. We will be going into sound selection and sound design. We will be creating a rolling techno kick and bass line. We will be going into percussion, we will be creating a little techno vocal hook, and we will be creating a 303 acid bass line from scratch. I'm also going to show you how to keep the interest alive in what can be a repetitive genre, and we're going to be diving into a little bit of mixing as well. I've included this project file and all the samples which you can download for free below this video. It's for Ableton 10, and if you dig this video, give it a big fat thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and without further ado, let's hop into the DAW and get it done. And the first thing I'm going to do is select the right tempo. So I'm going to choose 132 because it's a nice techno tempo, and I'm going to call the project Techno Chomsky because why wouldn't I? Okay, we have the tempo, now let's get a kick. I'm just dragging in a sample, but you could do this in MIDI, of course, and it's a nice beefy techno kick, so let's have a listen. So I'm just going to loop that, and we're going to work on this loop first. So that's our techno kick. Okay. After that, we are going to make our rumble bass, and we're going to base this off the kick drum. Now, I get asked a lot about how to do techno rumble bass, so this is how. Well, there are a few ways, but this is how I do it. So I'm loading up a new audio track, and the reason I'm doing that is because you can do it in the effects in your kick channel, but I like to have them separated out because then you've got more control and you can mix them at different levels. So what I'm going to do, and you can do this in any DAW, but this is how you do it in Ableton. I'm going to choose the audio from the kick, turn the monitor on, and now we have got that kick signal doubled up on both channels. That's off. So now we are going to process this rumble, and the way we are going to do that first is I'm going to use delay. You can do this with reverb, but delay gives it a bit more of a rhythmic feel. So the first thing I'm going to do is turn that up to wet 100%, so we're not doubling up the dry kick signal. Then I'm going to adjust the feedback a bit. So you can hear it doubling up now, but obviously it's still not a rumble, so I'm going to show you how to do that. After that, I'm going to throw a saturator on, or a distortion unit. Again, you can do this in any DAW, but I want to use just the stock plugins with Ableton in this, so you can follow along if you want. So you can hear that's really distorting that delayed signal, and it's very industrial, so we need to take out some of those frequencies. I'm going to use the EQ8 for this, and the first frequency I'm going to take out is the upper frequencies. So you can hear it starting to take shape already. It's got that techno rumble to it. But we don't want it fighting with the kick. So there are a couple of things we can do. Now, this is the same in the Pro Q3 by FabFilter, but you can kind of see, if you roll over where the loudest part of the signal is, you can see here it's displaying the frequency. So the fundamental frequency of this kick drum is about 52, 53 hertz, and we are going to cut that away from our rumble. So the main kick drum isn't being muffled by the rumble. So I'm going to choose a bell curve. You can see you can choose the different shapes for the filter here. So I'll choose bell, and then just put in 53 hertz, choose a slightly narrower Q, and then just cut away some of that low end. So it breathes, so it allows the kick drum to breathe through. Okay, after that, I'm going to add some sidechain compression. So not only are we cutting the frequencies away from the rumble, we're also letting the main kick cut through a bit. Now usually I would use the LFO tool by Steve Duda at X for Records, but because I'm only using stock plugins in this tutorial, I'm going to use the Auto Pan and then tweak it to be a bit funny. So I'm going to invert the polarity, turn the phase to 0, choose Sawtooth, synchronize it to the track, choose 1/4, and all this is going to be doing is, but you can see this volume shape here. It's going to be ducking the delayed signal, the rumble, in time with the kick, and then pumping back up like a sidechain compressor. Obviously, you can't really do it very accurately with this, so again, I'd use the LFO tool or Kickstart or something like that. But it's still ducking. So now you can see that we can actually control these two levels individually from each other, the rumble and the kick. And that's why I've got them on two separate channels. Okay, so I'm going to color that green so I can see it's part of the kick, although it's really the bass line of the track as well. So I might kind of color that yellow. Now I'm going to group these together. You can just send them to a bus if you're not using Ableton, but in Ableton you can group them, and I'm going to process them together. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to get the drum bus in Ableton, which is just going to beef it up a bit. But I think our kick needs a little bit of work actually. I think it needs some of this boxy frequencies taken out. And some high end on a shelf. And a bit of punch or knock. No, I don't want to double that. Here we go. So I'm just going to pump up the Q and the gain and sweep through until I get this the part of the signal that's kind of make it punch through a bit more. As this is the kick I'm working on. And then rein it back a bit. So this is off, and this is on. I might actually boost the low end slightly as well using a shelf. So that's where we were. So it really is quite beefy now, and you could add some boom with the drum bus as well on the group. So the kick and the rumble are going through to this. If you don't have Ableton, you could use the Bark of Dog, which is completely free. So you can hear the difference it's made. And I'll do a tiny bit more EQ work on that. And this is such an important part of techno and all dance music really, is that kick and bass balance. I'll revisit this later on when we've got the other elements in. Okay, so we are in a hurry, so let's get on to the next thing, which would be the hi-hats. Let's get those techno hi-hats on the go. So I'm just going to call it drums, and then I'm going to load in a MIDI controlled drum machine in Ableton. That would be the drum rack, and I'm going to find some hi-hats, and I'm going to use single shots for this. I'm going to use closed hats. Let's see, these Vengeance ones are quite nice. That'll do for the time being. See, that rumble's quite hardcore. So So maybe that's better. And you can see I started by having the kick on -6, so it's not going to be distorting or clipping. Okay, let's get these drums on the go. Drums. And just on every other beat. Now you don't really need claps in techno. Depends on the type of techno, of course, but for this type we're not going to have claps. We're just going to have that driving beat. Now I don't really like that drum sound, so what I can do, it's nice and easy in Ableton. I'll turn off snap and then I'm just going to scroll through some. Until I find one that sounds like it works well with the kick and the rumble. Okay, I'm happy with that. So I'm going to add some room reverb. And what I've done is I've got this on an auxiliary channel. I've got a room reverb and a hall reverb. So let's just add some of that room reverb to the hat. So in Ableton, you can do that by assigning the, let's see, create return chain and create another return chain, assign that to the room reverb, assign that to the hall reverb. And now I can add some of this room reverb to the hat. So it gives it a bit more space. Next is the 16th hat. So I'm going to choose a different hat sound for this. And again, I'm going to kind of scroll through after I programmed it in. And we want one on every 16th beat, like this. Now, in terms of groove, I probably wouldn't apply any groove, shuffle and whatnot, because it's techno and it's pretty straight down the line. So obviously that's way too loud, so and what I might do is actually alternate some of the volumes as well, just to give it a bit more movement. That'll do. So I just turned the velocity down of a couple of them. I can hear there's some low end in that actually, so I might change the sample or do a bit of EQ. That's quite cool. It's got some character. Let's just stick a quick EQ on there. I wouldn't class this as mixing, it's just really basic. You know, the proper mix down would be done separately. Cool, okay, the next thing to do is get some weird rhythmic rhythm in there. Rhythmic rhythm, yes, definitely. Okay, samples. Let's just listen to some of my sounds that I've recorded from around the world. Oh, that's cool. Where's that from? That I'll probably see in a second. That is chanting Buddhists in Christchurch, from Christchurch in New Zealand. Strangely enough. Okay, just gonna basically loop a little bit of that. There's a big spike there though, so I'm gonna get rid of that. And then just copy that last bit. Whoops. And then just duplicate that. And let's have a listen. Cool. So it's kind of slightly off time, but it gives it a nice vibe. I like that. So I'm going to have a look at the EQ. There's probably lots of low end that's not needed. And I might put on a bit of compression just so you can hear the quieter sounds in there. Cool, okay. We can also add a bit of room reverb there just to make it gel a bit more. with the room reverb, I'm going to throw an EQ on there and just make sure that there's no unwanted low end under about 130. Cool. Okay, next is the 303. Ooh, a nice 303. Again, I would usually use a plugin for a 303, and by 303, it's the Roland TB303 bass machine that I'm going to be replicating. Classic techno acid sound, and this is something that Charlotte de Witte, is that how you pronounce her name? She uses this sound, and you know, loads of techno artists do. So let's get a little riff on the go. I'm going to use the analog synth in Ableton, in the nature of doing everything with stock plugins. And let's have a look at what is going on. So the 303, the TB303, they are very expensive now, but they are monophonic synths. So the first thing I need to do is turn it to mono. And before I tweak with the sound, let's just get the rhythm and the melody written down. So if we remember, when we looked at the kick, we see the fundamental frequency was about A. Basically, I think it was about 53 hertz, was it? Let's have another look. Yeah, so it's about, if you look, it's got the hertz and then underneath the actual note on the keyboard that it is. So 54 hertz is A. So I'm going to write this little riff in the key of A. So it all sounds nice and in tune. Well, as in tune as you'd want industrial techno to sound. I'm just going to do a little simple riff. And I want it to sound kind of minor, because techno is often in a minor key. Cool, okay. I know it's not great, but it'll serve for the purposes of this tutorial. And I'm just going to loop that. And now let's work on this sound. So what I'm going to do is, firstly, I'm going to reduce the release. Haven't had my coffee yet. Ooh, I should get one. And the sustain and the decay. I want it to be staccato. And I'm going to turn the glide on. That is a classic part of the 303 sound. So you can hear it sweep between the notes. Turn the resonance up, frequency down. You should start to recognize that sound now. But that doesn't sound nearly filthy enough. Am I right? If so, give me a hell yeah in the comments below. Actually, don't give me a hell yeah. Give me an amen. All right, okay, let's get a lovely bit of distortion on there. So I'm going to use I'm going to use the overdrive because, again, all stock plugins. So let's do it. I'm just going to drive this and get it sounding absolutely filthy. Turn it down a bit. Nice, okay, let's get a delay on there. With ping pong, turn the feedback down, otherwise it's going to go cray cray. In mono, check it in mono. Okay, I've got some clipping here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the drum bus down. I'm going to select the drum bus, the kick bus, and the drums, and the rhythm, and the 303. And I'm just going to bring them all down in proportion to each other. So the mix is still as it was, but we've got 6 dB of headroom here now. Cool. Okay, on to the next thing. That would be, a nice like repeating organy sound. This is classic techno. So what I'm going to do is just get a MIDI thingy on the go. I'm going to get a sampler in there, or a simpler. Again, use any sampler, or you could use a plug-in synth if you want, but I'm going to use a sample. And we're just going to do basically an A minor triad, and that's going to be our techno chord. So where will we get one of those? Keys and organs. Oh, DX7. Yeah, I'll use one of those. That's an old sample, that. And now I'm going to just basically do a repeating stab. So there's A. Whoops, that would be A major, so we need to make this a minor third. Okay, something's wrong. I need to turn more voices on because that defaulted at mono. So now, nice. And we want to get some size and kind of space in this sound. It's almost like a background sound that we want. So I'm just going to color that blue because that's the way I like to color chords. And I want some stereo width there. You can do this with better samplers, but I'm just using the most simplest of the simplest. So the way I'm going to get some stereo width is I'm going to duplicate that. No, I'm going to group it in Ableton. I'm going to duplicate this chain. So I've got basically two exactly the same as we had with the rumble. And you can hear it's twice as loud now. I'm going to pan one left, I'm going to pan one right, and it's going to sound identical because they're the same sound. But then I'm going to detune one of them slightly. Now, how do I do that? Probably by changing it to the sampler. And it gives it a slightly more disturbed sound as well. So now there's a lot more stereo width. And I can start this one of the samples from a slightly different point, which will give it stereo width as well because the sounds aren't identical. Cool. Now I want to add some reverb to that. So instead of using I'll use some room reverb. But I'm also going to add some hall reverb to make it nice and big. In fact, I might add the hall reverb on the channel itself just to soften that staccato hit at the beginning. So let's add some reverb here. And a little bit of EQ on that organ sound. Boost the top. Give it some atmosphere. Cool, on to the next. Right, now we're going to do the mix in a minute anyway. This is all quite rough mixing, but I just want to get this done so you can see how to do it. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is use a one-shot vocal to make things a bit interesting. So let's get a vocal. I'm going to just hunt through some old vocal samples. Female, I think. Nice bit of sex. That'll do nicely. Oh yeah, that one will do. She's loving it, let's be honest. Okay. And I wouldn't want to overuse this. And to make it less cheesy, I'm gonna stick a load of delay on it. Definitely makes things less cheesy. I'm going to use the echo plugin actually, rather than the delay. And it's a bit more like a take plugin, so there's more control on it. You get a cooler sound. Let's have a listen. Turn its ping pong. So it takes a long time for it to die out. It sounds pretty cool. Okay, next we want some kind of rhythmic vocal as well to keep the thing rolling along. So we call that vocal 2. And then, all worship the Dark Lord of Techno. I'm going to record my own vocals. So I'm going to select my microphone. Where are you, microphone? External in. Not selected. Get it selected, baby. Okay, is that working? Yes. So let's record this vocal. It's a matter of Techno Chomsky. That'll do. It's a matter of Techno Chomsky. Fact. So let's mess around with this a little bit and get it sitting in the rhythm. I'd probably actually just choose a better sample than me saying something stupid, but that's what I'm using today. It's a matter of Techno Chomsky. 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 It's a matter of Techno. Or you could even double it up if you really wanted to. It's a matter of... And it's all about the tones in techno, so it's not so much the chords or the actual lyrics. You know, in some techno it is, but quite often it's just the groove that the vocals are bringing. So it has to be, you know, it has to bring some groove to the table. And I'll just take out some of the low end. I quite like the Techno Chomsky more than It's a Matter. And I'm going to make that, I'm going to in fact double this up so we don't hear that woman getting carried away. So we'll just do that once every 2 bars. And I want to do something with this vocal to make it kind of shine through a bit. So what I'm going to do is choose a phaser. That'll do it. Cool. Okay, we're just mashing through this. Again, I hope you're enjoying it so far, guys. If you are, give me an amen, brother, in the comments below, and also let me know what genre you want me to cover next. The most popular choice wins. Okay, so now we're going to work on the mix and a little bit of arrangement. So to do that, I want some kind of build-up. So let's get rid of those drums. In fact, I'm going to keep some of the drums. I'm going to take out the kicks. And I'm going to automate that 303 because you've got to automate a 303, baby. So that would be the filter. show automation in new lane. And you wouldn't be having big sweeps and whatnot in techno. That would make it too cheesy. So it's through careful automation and removal of certain elements and just volume automation as well. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some tension by duplicating that chord, and I'm going to say higher chords. And what I'm going to do is the second part of the break, I'm going to grab those, put them up an octave, and I'm just going to bring that in. And I'm going to automate the volume of the original chords and these new ones. Like this, show automation in new lane. So you can hear that rumble bass in there. And we'll bring this chord pattern to the second part there as well. So it's a lot about the texture in techno as well. Now we've got this rough kind of tune. I'm going to add a little bit of snare kind of rolls just to keep the rhythm a bit more interesting. And the way I'm going to do that is, I'll put that below drums. I'm going to load in another drum machine, or you could do this with just a sampler actually. So that's what I'll do. I'll use a simpler. Any sampler will do though. Then I'll get a nice kind of 909 snare sound, because it's de rigueur, don't you know? If I can find one. That's almost one. That's not a snare. That's kind of a 909 snare. There's a bit of reverb on there. So I'll take that off so I can use my room reverb so it all sounds like it's coming from the same place. And then let's just put in a rhythm. Just drawing in a rhythm for the snare. That one will do. And then that will kind of go a bit, I'll keep that for later for there as well. Whoops, what am I doing? I'll keep that for there. Snare. Why is that not working? Anyway, first. Let's have a listen to that. And then we can copy that and have that rhythm play a bit later as well. I'll change it a bit though. So this is going to be playing over the rest of the drums too. add a bit of variation at the end. Okay, that will do for that. So now we've kind of got our basic elements. Let's mix this so it's sounding a bit better. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm just going to assign clips. Yeah, so they are our basic elements. There's nothing else I really want to put in there. I would if I were spending more time on this, but for the time being, let's have a listen. So we get to the busiest point of the track, which would be here, and then start mixing from the most important elements. So that would be the kick and the bass, and then the 303. Actually, no, then the drums. So you can still hear the reverb coming in. That's fine though. Now, spending the time on selecting the right sounds is definitely the where your time is best spent, rather than trying to make them fit later. Just add some reverb to the kick, to the snare. I'm going to add a little bit of saturation to beef that snare up. Again, the Ableton saturator. And I'm going to add a bit of auto pan to that, but in the kind of normal way you'd use it. Just to give some movement and interest. And I might even do that on the closed hats too. The 16th closed hats. And then I'll bring in the 303. And I'll put on some EQ there to take out the low end so it doesn't muddle up the bass. Again, it's rough, but you get the idea. So let's hear those. What I might do is actually add some bit reduction on that vocal to make it a bit more kind of gritty. So let's get that from Redux. Here we go. And you could automate this too, which is pretty cool. Just make sure there's no untoward. Oh, I've already done the EQ there. I should really have done it after the phaser and the bit reduction. But there you have it. Then I'm going to add in just a few you can add in a few one shots here and there, like if you've got some random sound that you want to stick in to give it more interest. So F it. There we go. Let's just stick one of those in for good measure. Turn it down, put a massive reverb on it, massive mind. And then get that 303 automated again. And then it's a case of just tweaking the mix. And there you have it, guys. That is my cheeky little techno tutorial. I hope you liked it. And if you want more tips like this, hit subscribe, smash that like button, and don't forget to download this project for free. Below this file, it's got all my samples in as well, so you can kind of pick it apart. And I've worked on the mix slightly as well, so it's a little bit better. And oh yeah, that's right, let me know in the comments if you want me to do another one of these genre-specific tutorials, and if so, what genre do you want me to cover? Until next time, cheers and happy producing.